Today's Bible study comes from the book of Luke, chapter 22. It is verses 1 through 6, and it reads as follows. Now, the festival of unleavened bread, called the Passover, was approaching, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some way to get rid of Jesus, for they were afraid of the people. Then Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. And Judas went to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guard and discussed with them how he might betray Jesus. They were delighted and agreed to give him money. He consented and watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over to them when no crowd was present. Amen. Now, this is when Judas agrees to betray Jesus, and this is hard. These verses here, they punch you in the face, because if you notice, they called Judas one of the 12, which he was. He had seen Jesus do great things. He had been given power to do things, but he was the one that betrayed Jesus. So when it starts out, the festival of unleavened bread, called the Passover, was approaching. Now, we celebrate, or the world celebrates, holidays. And we should celebrate holy days. I just have to say that. The Lord gave us days that we are supposed to celebrate. And you see right here in the beginning of this, it says, now the festival of unleavened bread, called the Passover, was approaching. That was a holy day. And the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some way to get rid of Jesus. In this second part of the verse, in the second verse, it's telling you that even with the holy time coming up, special time, because the Lord has holy days for us. Man celebrates holidays, but the truth of the matter is we are really supposed to celebrate the Lord's holy days. And if you look up holidays with an I, there is no reason for them. They are paganistic customs, but that is just information. And the chief priests were and the teachers of the law were looking for a way to get rid of Jesus. They were tired of Jesus, and when they say get rid of, they were looking for a way to kill him. But the problem was they were afraid of the crowd, the people. These people were everywhere. Jesus was a rock star and more than that, and they were following him. Crowds were there. They were seeing things happening. They were coming to Jesus to be healed, to be taught, to be fed, whatever it may be. They knew that they were being rewarded in their spirit with compassion and love to their mind and physical bodies if it involved Jesus. So these crowds were coming to him, and they were afraid of what the people were going to do. So then it says Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot. So what it's really saying is there was an opportunity in Judas for Satan to enter him. Judas was selfish and out for Judas. So Satan saw this weakness, this opening, and he entered Judas, called Iscariot. And you notice it says one of the 12. It tells you he's one of the 12 because even though he was walking with Christ, he took his eye off of him. He was weak. His faith was limited. His heart was not right towards Christ at all. In other words, he was man. And he didn't keep his eye on the Lord, and his heart wasn't for the Lord. And and if you read later on, or actually prior, when Judas was upset for the woman putting the perfume on Jesus' feet, he was upset with that. Remember, it wasn't because of anything else except his greed. And he thought you could do better things with it. So Satan enters Judas, and Judas, after being entered by Satan, goes to these chief priests and these officers of the temple guard and discusses a way to betray Jesus. Hold up, you mean to tell me after all the good that they've done together, the 12 that he's seen, and the good that he's seen Jesus do, he still wants to betray him? So Satan has got control of Judas right now. And to tell you the truth, at times I think that Judas followed Jesus for his own personal gain. And Jesus knew and knows. We may not, but Jesus knew. So, what did he do? He discusses a way to betray Jesus. And in doing so, they were glad and agreed to give him some money. And if you look back at Matthew, it says, they were, and are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you? What are you willing to give me if I give him to you? And that just tells you that Judas had a price, or Judas could be bought. And this, once again, goes back to what I said about the perfume. It was greed. Greed that betrayed him. See, Satan is not, he's not all knowing. He didn't know how the Lord had planned these events. He wasn't included in the plans. But what I can tell you is you definitely know Jesus knew about the plan, and Satan didn't, because the sacrifice and the blood on the cross, that blood, that payment, that atonement for the sacrifice is always needed that blood, and Jesus' blood is what was needed. Satan was trying to kill him and didn't even know that he was going to get sacrificed. The blood was the sacrifice. So Satan probably heard all this stuff too and didn't pay it no mind. He heard the prophets, knew the prophets, didn't pay it no mind. But he's not all knowing. He's not omnipresent. He's not omnipotent. He's none of it. He has some power, but he ain't got that power. So Satan ain't all wise. And this starts to speak to the fact that with Jesus' death, he was going to crush him on the head, just like if you go back to Genesis and it talks about the heel, crushing the head of the snake. This part of that heel. Satan about to get some. So he wanted to use it. But see, wickedness doesn't work against the Lord. See, God used this wickedness and the things that Judas did with prompting from Satan. He just used them in his eternal plan. And he already had an appointed time, an appointed place, and what was going to happen to Jesus. And Jesus knew. The Lord knew. Maybe Satan just didn't believe. So here you go. That even though Judas Iscariot did what he did, the Lord used that wickedness to still complete his plan. You can't go against God's plan. I don't care who you are or what you think you're doing. What God says is what it is, period. When he tells you this is how it's going to go, it's going to go that way. And whatever action or activity you may have against God's person or people, when God sets it into play, no one can change it up. See, God is the all-wise, the all-seeing, the all-knowing. Satan was created from the all-wise, all-knowing, and all-seeing. He didn't have everything that the all-wise, all-knowing, and all-seeing has. And when Judas agrees to betray Jesus, it was just a work to get that blood on the cross to atone for all sin. Amen.